I'm Corey Wilson, and I am humbled, really, to get to present Brian Hanni for induction into the Topeka West Athletic Hall of Fame. First, I want to thank the committee for voting Brian to this award. I've known Brian for a long time. I know that he's going to come up here in a while and tell you how he doesn't deserve to be with all these great athletes, both those being inducted tonight and those who have been inducted in the past. But that's exactly why he does deserve it. His body of work more than places him here alone. But it's his humility, the way he works with people of all ages, that creates the spark and lights the match. The program tells you that he pioneered sports broadcasts for Topeka West Television, and that's true, but he did so very, very much more than that. We were the first to broadcast high school football on television in this area at any level, and that was 100% Brian, his dream, his focus, his effort. It started with a microphone directly attached to a camera and grew from there. That first year, there was test after test. That second year, Brian's senior year, we turned him loose with a plan, his plan, and he took it and ran with it. Football and basketball primarily. He was always refining his craft, and his craft became our craft. His success became our success. And there's his first halftime interview when then KU basketball player and Topeka West alum C.B. McGrath showed up for a game. Brian asked me if he could do it. I thought, there's no way. But I said, go ahead. Next thing I know, they're getting chairs set up, and Brian has the interview going, all in a space of less than a couple of minutes. But that's Brian. CB felt he could trust him. Most people do, I think. In an effort to add more friends in his broadcast, we added multiple cameras and a scoreboard, all of it pretty much on the fly. Those multi-camera experiments became the base for all of the multi-camera work we do in remote situations in not only sports, but also other activities and events here on campus and on the road. In fact, tonight's event is being recorded using much of the same techniques that Brian pioneered. But for Brian, it's always been sports. There's no one that prepares more, that thinks more, or cares more than Brian. Veteran sportscaster Mike Mann saw it early on, and he brought Brian in to do games at the Topeka Invitational. Veteran sportscaster Tom Hedrick saw it in Brian when Brian was a freshman at KU, and he brought Brian in to do games in that area as well. Brian, though, continued that love of high school sports until he left for Texas Tech a few short years ago. Brian, of course, has fostered more than the casual friendship while working at his craft at Kansas University, which of course is his home and has been for so long. People like legendary sports announcer Max Faulkenstein and announcer and fellow Topeka West alum Bob Davis, and fellow announcer David Lawrence, who is here tonight, who along with Brian have done so much for young people in their leadership of Fellowship of Christian Athletes and the Rock Chalk Round Ball Classic that benefits young people in their fight against cancer. Again, if you read the program, you can see that he's pretty much done it all, and he's earned it all too. There's no one that works harder, studies harder, plans more than Brian Hanni. There's so many stories that I've been privy to about Brian. Like the time that he was the public address announcer at Allen Fieldhouse. The game was near its end when freshman Mario Chalmers got some playing time. Brian, ever the studier of players, knew that Chalmers had a high school nickname. Brian watched him enter, and when Mario scored, Brian referred to him as Super Mario, perhaps one of the first times that was ever used. There's more to that story, but I'm not going to tell you. Perhaps the best comment that I've heard about Brian came from, or at least was attributed to KU basketball Bill Self when he said, "Brian's a stud." Enough said. Brian stayed connected to high school, I think, in part because he feels he owes it so much. I chuckle at that because I know how much he has done for high school sports. He's known around the state for his efforts and has been the recipient of countless awards from the Kansas Association of Broadcasters as well as the Kansas State High School Activities Association. He stayed close to Topeka West as well. When he was in Lawrence, we would bring him back to talk to our classes, and he would mentor some of our announcers. Brian has always been willing. He's invited our kids to events, invited them to remote broadcasts, opportunities most folks just don't get. Now that he's in Texas, he still sends advice and pep talks to kids. I ask him to give a boost to, and Brian, I've got a couple that need that right now, so we'll talk later. Look, I don't want to steal his thunder here, so I'll stop, but I do want to say this to Brian. Brian, you come from great parents, Topeka West alums themselves. As a high school announcer, you were all city, you were all league, you were all state. Never doubt for a moment that you don't deserve to be here. We are proud of your efforts with your craft, but even more, we're proud of the integrity that you carry with you in helping our young people become young men and women and giving them hope. It's a great honor to present Brian Hanni to the Topeka West Athletic Hall of Fame. Brian?
Thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. That was incredible. I really appreciate those words. I'll tell you what, before I get started, it doesn't feel quite right doing this in a normal suit. My best public speaking at Topeka West High School came with one of those studly purple blazers, so excuse me 1 second. Do my best Clark Kent in a phone booth here. We don't know where those original purple blazers went. I think Adam Wrights on the left in the picture took them off to KU to try and impress the ladies. But I did find this on eBay the other day, and you'll notice the sleeves fit just right, just like they did in that photo. So that feels much more like it, right? Kind of looks like one of those cheesy Pro Football Hall of Fame jackets, so it's apropos for the evening. 135, not the number of Big 12 games I've called. 135. Not the length of this speech, I'm probably far too verbose for that. 135. Probably what I weighed for most of high school, but still not what I'm getting at here either. What is 135? 135 was what I scored on my first day of representing Topeka West athletics in a sporting event. I was a freshman junior varsity golfer in Ozaki, Kansas at Village Greens. Let that sink in for a second. CC, especially you, 135, that's like 63 over par. Coach Mariani should have made me walk home from Ozaki that day, but he didn't. The point is, I was far from an extraordinary golfer. Heck, I was far from an ordinary golfer. And yet, I'm incredibly fortunate to be honored here tonight with all of you, because this far from even ordinary athlete was blessed with some extraordinary relationships, influences, and incredible opportunities. And it all began right here at Topeka West High School. The man who so graciously introduced me moments ago was the catalyst for my entire career. Mr. Wilson saw my ambition and my enthusiasm for sportscasting and not only gave me an unprecedented platform to hone my skills, but he was also so encouraging, so inspiring in helping fuel that passion early on. Young sportscasters always try to emulate the big-time guys. And for me, back in the 1990s, it was ESPN's Chris Berman. I wanted to be the next Chris Berman, and Mr. Wilson was cool with that. He let me be my own Berman here at Topeka West. So much like Berman would do on ESPN's NFL Prime Time when he had his nicknames like Ben Heavy Winter Coats. Coach Wilson let me have nicknames like AJ Hip Hopper, and Bernard Wright became Bernard. If loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. The nicknames were probably sillier than they were creative, but Mr. Wilson was so encouraging. Always gave me complete creative control while still providing guidance and instruction to get better at the basics. Quite frankly, folks, his mentoring of me is proof of what can happen when an educator's enthusiasm for a student's dreams is equal to or greater than the ambition of that student. Don't get me wrong, I was plenty ambitious, as you can see, but Corey Wilson, he truly cared that much. My time in Topeka West debate and forensics was also key. Mr. Kuntz helped me to be quick on my feet as a public speaker in debate, and Mrs. Ralston helped me to become a good persuasive speaker through numerous oration speeches, all of which were about sports, which again was an example of a Topeka West educator allowing the student to tailor the task to their ambition and thus propelling me forward. Mr. Schnacker was awesome too. He helped me to become a much better writer, and that really set me on a fast track once I got to KU. As Corey said, Mike Manns gave me my first play-by-play opportunity to work the TIT, the Topeka Invitational Tournament, at the age of 17, and reluctantly, Coach Mariani said goodbye to his 63 over par golfer, which was probably more of an indictment of my golf skills than your thoughts on my broadcasting budding talents there. But that was when I said goodbye to golf and really went all in, and I owe Mike Manns that debt of gratitude. Before leaving for KU, I had the privilege one day of cleaning the golf clubs of the late, great Dean Smith, Roy Williams, and one Max Faulkenstein. I was a bag boy at Topeka Country Club at the time. Though Max probably doesn't remember it, his practical career tips, instead of a monetary one, meant so much to me that day. It was the best compensation I could have received. For the record, Coach Smith tipped me $2 and Roy gave me a 5 spot, but Max's tip was the best. His encouragement on that day really made me think I could do this. Then I got to KU, and I was blessed to have the best play-by-play coach any aspiring sportscaster could ever have, the man who literally wrote the book on sportscasting, Tom Hedrick, who's with us here tonight. I learned so much from Tom. This is a man who's called Super Bowls, Cotton Bowls, the World Series as well. In a couple of months, I'm blessed with a chance to call my first national broadcast of a college football bowl game, and I owe that success to Tom and the coaching that continues to this day to make me the best I can be. Post-graduation, I was lucky enough to have the chance to work with David Lawrence, best color analyst for college football in the entire country. He quickly became one of my very best friends. In addition to David, Bud Stallworth, Wayne Simeon, Aaron Miles, Todd Reesing, Scott Pollard, these were all co-hosts of mine. A KU fan's dream to hang out with people like this, and I got to do it on a daily basis. We had fun together, and I learned things from all of these people. None of which that I learned from Scott Pollard can I share with you here tonight, but it was plenty educational. If you haven't noticed by now, there's been a consistent theme throughout my story. The good Lord has surrounded me with special people at every step of my development, starting with amazing parents, incredible mentors, broadcast partners, and friends. I'm so grateful for all of these people because it's been their influence, their guidance, and encouragement that set me on a path of great fulfillment. And once again, it all began right here at Topeka West. I'll leave you tonight with a Bob Davis tradition. Remember earlier I said us aspiring broadcasters, we like to emulate the all-time greats, of which Bob Davis is certainly one. And what a great honor, by the way, it is for me to join Bob Davis in this Hall of Fame. And how about Topeka West? We've got 20% of the Big 12 voices. Take that, Trojan fans. I saw Bob do something in 2002 that I stole out of his playbook and I've used ever since. He would write a poem at the end of whatever season it was about whatever sport, KU football, KU basketball, what have you. And I've done this ever since with all the teams that I broadcast for. A poem that sums up the theme of the season, the triumphs and all of that. And so with that in mind, to honor Bob and to honor all of you that I'm so thrilled to go into the hall with here tonight, here's a little ditty about the class of 2015. What an amazing honor, the Topeka West Hall, chock full of stories of athletic glory and legends one and all. Let's touch on each quickly, and I'll finish with a flurry. Let's first set sail with the tale of the late Coach Murray. 2 state titles in a 20-year run, but then through coaching, never loafing, Murray was far from done. He kept pursuing ministry and continued helping others, a legacy clear to see amongst his Christian brothers. Then there's C.C. Metzler. Man, he could hit it far. From tee to green, the best you've seen, and always under par. And Rebecca Smith Brannaman. Now that girl could really fly. No matter the meters, no one could beat her. She'd always run right by. When it came to tennis, no one could take down Kurt Reed. Quick to the net, the safest of bets, that charger would always succeed. And how about Jay Tunnell, Mr. Basketball in our state? His game so pretty, 2 times All-City, one of the all-time greats. I bet you remember Ryan Kelly, the Bo Jackson of a decade ago. Whether avoiding sacks or hitting jacks, he always put on a show. Finally, cross country, the 77 state title team. Excellent pacing throughout their racing fulfilled their ultimate dream. An immensely talented group of which I'm honored to be one. Another edition of a great tradition that's truly second to none. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for having me here tonight.